Walking up to 5A High School September 9th of this past year, I'll never forget everything running through my mind that day. Particularly, what I was getting myself into is the one I would constantly find reoccurring. That day, I wore an orange shirt, blue shorts, and a pair of beat-up sneakers that I pulled from deep beneath my closet. But I guess about the same time, 300 other people were doing the same thing. But I doubt any of us realized our paths would cross that day. That day, me and my fellow students stood before our school and witnessed as it became transformed from the place we would find ourselves 6 periods a day stressing about some test or quiz into a place that welcomed in Pasco County residents as Hurricane Irma came barreling down the heart of Florida. The 300 that came that first day would multiply into the thousands, and we would find ourselves working alongside people from different backgrounds, lifestyles, and experiences, and it all came together for the common goal of helping each other have the best possible living situation. There's some moments in your lifetime that feel as though they were where you're supposed to be exactly at that moment of time. And for me and everyone I've talked to since, this was our time and this was our moment. There are many memories that I'll never forget from being a part of this movement. And one of them particularly was when I was helping a little girl to her room. My primary function during the hurricane was taking people's stuff from when they checked in into their rooms. And I took this girl and her family up to their room, and she stared back at me, and her eyes were bloodshot from the tears that were running down her face. How would I console this little girl? What could I possibly say or do that can make this better? People during intense times of stress and despair are trained to help people to cope with this. But how do I, as a high school student with little to no experience, help this little girl? The answer is with heart. Come Monday, what was once Miss Blackerby's room was Miss Blackerby's room again. The room I had helped the little blind ladies from church set up in was back to being Miss Hallberg's room. But really, the heart that had been there throughout this entire experience never really left. In fact, it had been there the whole time. Before the school year had even began, students were coming together to create a plan to welcome the incoming freshman class the way they wished they had when they were younger. Behind it all was the desire to create an atmosphere that not only allowed for academic growth, but personal growth, so each student could become the person that they wish to be, the change they want to be. And so, once again, I would find myself standing before my high school, questioning if what our efforts would be something out of a wildest dreams or something more terrifying than a nightmare. I found myself feeling the former. The place I myself had remarked freshman year as a cold place began to beat with the heart and spirit I had never before experienced. Sorry about that. Students and staff of 5A became inspired to become more and to strive to change the climate of the entire school. For many, coming to school in a negative atmosphere had reinforced a self-fulfilling prophecy in which they never expected much more from themselves or those around them. This had plagued the school's mentality, whether in academics, sports, or club events, and it contributed to that cold feeling that I felt my first 2 years of high school. Enough. Enough became the rallying cry and become the watchword for the silent movement inside our school, where students came together to strive to change the negative atmosphere. Were words of despair, such as, "I can't do it, that's too hard, what I say doesn't matter, what I do doesn't matter," had once been commonplace, students came together and strove to change these negative ideas. And so once more, the students would come together and unite for a cause. This time, in the wake of events happening in Parkland, Florida, students would come together to try and create a sense of clarity for themselves and those in their community, and would bring election officials and government officials into their school and ask them the hard questions lingering in everybody's mind. I'll never forget, as our school welcomed in election officials to help students pre-register and register to vote, the sight of students I had personally talked to and had told me that their opinions didn't matter or have an impact on the grand scheme of things transform as they walked across that stage, the very stage I had seen welcome all those residents before in the earlier in the school year. Enough. Enough, I said, and enough my fellow students said, as we strove to change this and to make our school a better place. This movement inside of 5A combated every negative undertone with a sign of hope, a sign of compassion, a sign that someone cared, a sign that 5A was taking a stand for change. Thank you.